Welcome to the Deep Dive, your shortcut to understanding the fascinating corners of our world.
So today we're jumping into a headline that probably made you stop scrolling. Google's Gemini panicked playing Pokemon.
Yeah.
When I first saw that, I mean, my mind immediately went to, some kind of Skynet situation.
Oh, absolutely. It's definitely a headline designed to catch the eye, isn't it? It taints this picture of like an AI totally freaking out, losing its cool.
Exactly, like digital sweat dripping down his circuits. But what does panic even, mean when we're talking about an advanced AI like Gemini?
Right.
And why on earth would Google's DeepMind team put one of their top models through, the stress of playing Pokemon?
That's the core question, and that's what we want to unpack here. The main source we're digging into is a TechCrunch piece from June 17th, 2025. Amanda Silberling wrote it.
Ah, okay.
And she covered this really interesting, maybe slightly quirky DeepMind report.
So what did the report say? Well, it detailed how Google's latest multimodal AI, Gemini 2.5 Pro, that's one of their big large language models, an LLM, showed what DeepMind very carefully called panic-like behavior.
Panic-like, okay, not actual panic.
Exactly. And this wasn't just in some controlled lab setting. An independent developer was actually streaming Gemini playing Pokemon Blue on Twitch.
Live on Twitch.
Yeah, live on Twitch. And DeepMind was basically watching over its shoulder, analyzing every move.
Okay, so let's be clear up front. Our goal here isn't to sound the alarm bells or, say AI suddenly has feelings.
Definitely not.
Instead, we want to cut through that kind of metaphorical language. What does this panic really tell us about the AI? Why use Pokemon, of all things?
And what does it reveal about where AI is right now? Its strengths, and maybe more importantly, its weaknesses, its limitations.
Exactly. This is your shortcut to really getting what's behind that surprising headline.
So let's dive into the game. Pokemon Blue. What did this panic actually look like when Gemini was playing?
Yeah, what was it doing?
Silberling's article points out, based on the report, that Gemini tended to sort of resort to panic when its Pokemon were low on health HP, hit points or running low on moves, the power points, PP.
So when things got tough, basically.
Precisely. And it wasn't just like a minor hiccup. Its whole decision-making process seemed to just break down.
Break down how?
Well, the report mentioned it would suddenly stop using useful tools in the game, like the Pathfinder that helps navigate.
Oh, wow.
And then it would start making these really erratic, self-defeating moves. DeepMind called it a qualitatively observable degradation in its reasoning.
A qualitative degradation, that sounds bad. I mean, think about it. A kid usually finishes Pokemon Blue in, 25, 30 hours?
Around 26, yeah.
But Gemini, in one run where this Agent Panic, as they called it, was really bad, took 813 hours to finish the game.
813.
And even after they tweaked things, the next run was still over 400 hours.
It's kind of mind-boggling. It's like asking a super smart AI to do a simple task, and it just gets completely tangled up.
So what's the practical meaning of that? Why does it matter if an AI gets flustered playing a game?
Well, it's a really powerful diagnostic tool for DeepMind. They saw this pattern. When the AI's Pokemon team got weak, instead of fighting smarter, it would basically just try to, run away frantically.
Get the heck out of Dodge, as the report apparently put it.
Something like that, yeah. It entered this state, this panic-like mode, and started making errors very similar to how a human might mess up under extreme stress. And DeepMind isn't the only one doing this kind of thing. There was another test, Claude plays Pokemon, with Anthropic's AI.
Oh, right. I remember hearing about that.
And Claude also shows some weird failure modes, like sometimes it would apparently try to feint all its own Pokemon on purpose, thinking it could somehow warp through a maze that way, which, is not how Pokemon works.
Okay, so these complex AIs can act really strangely under pressure in these game environments. The behavior sounds bizarre, but the big question, the one I think everyone asks is, what does panic really mean here? Is it feeling something?
That's the million-dollar question, right?
Yeah.
And it immediately makes you think, oh my gosh, is the AI developing anxiety?
Yeah, exactly. Skynet's having a moment.
But DeepMind and commentators like Silberling are super careful to emphasize, no, Gemini does not feel fear or panic. It can't.
So the word panic is, what's a metaphor?
Exactly. It's a really useful shorthand, a metaphor for a breakdown in the model's reasoning process, not an actual emotion bubbling up inside it.
Okay.
The DeepMind report itself apparently says the AI does not think or experience emotion. Its actions just look like how A stressed human might make bad, hasty decisions. It's all about the output, the behavior we can see, not some internal feeling.
Right, so it's mimicking the pattern of panic without the subjective experience. That makes great.
Yeah.
So from an engineering perspective, what's the value in seeing this? What does it tell DeepMind about Gemini?
And that's where it gets really valuable.
Mm.
It's basically a stress test, seeing when and how the AI's planning breaks down, like when resources, the HP or PP, get low pinpoints weaknesses.
Like finding the weak spots in a bridge design.
Exactly like that. It highlights these specific brittle points in the AI's algorithms. Once they know where it struggles, they can work on making it more robust, more reliable, especially when facing complex or uncertain situations in the real world.
Okay, so it's a debugging tool, essentially. Find the bugs, fix them, make the AI better.
Precisely. Jess Kinghorn over at PC Gamer wrote about this too back in June. She made a great point that calling it agent panic is kind of a humanizing label, but you have to be careful.
What did she say?
She wrote, and I'm paraphrasing slightly, that AI agents don't feel things like panic. They don't even really think in the way we do. Gemini is just mimicking patterns it learned from all the data it was trained on.
That seems like a really crucial distinction to keep making.
Absolutely vital. I mean, think about us. Humans feel emotions because of our biology, our brains, hormones, bodies, all interacting in complex ways.
Right, we have the hardware for feelings.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Neuroscience experts always stress this. AI doesn't have a body, it doesn't have hormones, it lacks the whole biological setup. Researchers like Aru and others argued back in 2023 that AI models just don't have the embodied experiences and neural mechanisms for consciousness or feelings.
So what we're calling panic in the AI is just, what, an emergent glitch?
Pretty much. It's an emergent behavior that pops up because of how its algorithms interact with complex, stressful inputs based on its training. It's a failure pattern, not a feeling of distress.
Okay, but I've definitely seen studies, or at least headlines about studies, where AI models seem to show stress or anxiety. How does that fit in? It sounds a bit contradictory.
That's a really good point, and it gets into the nuance. Yes, there are studies showing LLMs can simulate behaviors that look like stress.
Simulate. How?
Well, for instance, one study found that LLMs perform best under moderate stress in their prompts, the instructions you give them. Too little stress or too much, and their performance drops off. Kind of like humans, actually.
Huh.
Another study showed you could give language models an anxiety questionnaire, and they'd answer consistently. And if you fed them more anxious text beforehand, their anxiety score would go up predictably.
Wow. So they can mirror the language patterns of anxiety really well.
Incredibly well. There was even a study in Nature NPJ this year where researchers could basically raise or lower a model's self-reported anxiety level just by giving it traumatic or calming stories before asking questions.
That's kind of amazing, and maybe a little unsettling.
It is amazing. It shows just how good these models are at pattern matching and reflecting the nuances in human language and, well, human experience, even without having the experience itself.
And this is the key part, right? The researchers doing these studies aren't saying the AI is actually feeling anxious.
Never. They are always crystal clear. This is a metaphor. We're observing changes in the output. Under stressful prompts, the AI's answers might change. Maybe they become less accurate or show more bias or just get weird and erratic like Gemini playing Pokémon. But that's it. There's no consciousness, no fear center lighting up. Neuroscientists point out that the artificial neurons in these models are, fundamentally different from biological ones. They're just code, essentially.
So when Gemini panicked, it means its internal process, its sort of chain of thought shifted, and it stopped using its tools effectively, making human-like mistakes under pressure.
Exactly that. A breakdown in processing, not an emotional breakdown.
Got it. So how have other experts and journalists reacted to these AI panics headlines? Are people worried this is going to make the public think AI is becoming sentient?
Generally, the reaction from serious tech journalists and AI experts has been pretty cautious, pretty measured. Most emphasize that while, AI panics is a catchy headline, it's potentially misleading.
Like the PC Gamer writer you mentioned.
Right, Jess Kinghorn. She had that wry comment about how it's fun to watch an AI play badly, but you definitely shouldn't be, patting Gemini on its strictly metaphorical back.
Yeah, don't try to console the code.
Exactly. And the original TechCrunch article, Silberling's piece, while it notes the behavior is fascinating yet unsettling, keeps a tone of scientific curiosity, not alarmism.
So no credible AI researchers are actually suggesting Gemini felt anything.
No, quite the opposite. Specialists constantly warn against this kind of anthropomorphism, giving human qualities to non-human things.
Right. We do that a lot.
We do. But neuroscientists, AI ethicists, they consistently say calling AI panicked risks confusing people, making them think AI is conscious or feeling when it's absolutely not, at least not currently. Experts see this Pokemon thing as an interesting software behavior, a super useful insight for debugging and improving AI, but definitely not proof of feelings.
Yeah, the goal is better AI, not scared AI.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Build more robust systems, not ones that experience existential dread playing video games.
This whole conversation really drives home how important it is to be careful with our language when we talk about AI, especially as it gets more capable. Using a word like panic grabs attention, sure, but it feels like it could easily lead people down the wrong path, thinking these systems have internal lives they just don't possess.
Exactly right. And responsible reporting, like that TechCrunch article, really tries to hammer home that this language is metaphorical. Kinghorn called it strictly metaphorical. We should probably talk about these things more in terms of technical failure modes or stress tests, because that's really what they are.
Okay, so let's distill this down. For you, the listener, what are the main things to take away from this Gemini Pokemon story?
Okay, first big takeaway. It's actually kind of expected that a complex AI might hit a wall or make weird choices in tricky situations. It shows its current limits. It's not magic.
Right, it's a signpost for improvement.
Exactly. It gives researchers valuable data. Second, and this is crucial, there's zero reason to worry about AI having emotional meltdowns. LLMs today just don't have consciousness or inner feelings.
Even if they can simulate things like anxiety.
Even then. As that Nature study mentioned, talking about an LLM's anxiety is metaphorical shorthand. It helps us understand its output patterns and design better systems. So this DeepMind Pokemon report, super useful for improving AI planning, but it's engineering, not science fiction.
That's a really clear summary. So the term panic, while evocative, is a useful metaphor for a specific kind of failure mode, the AI's reasoning breaking down under stress, especially when resources are low. But we have to remember it lacks the actual biological basis for feelings like fear. It's sophisticated pattern matching, generating outputs, not having an internal experience.
And thinking about this whole thing, it really brings up a bigger question, maybe something for you, the listener, to chew on. How does our very human habit of anthropomorphizing AI, treating it like it has human thoughts and feelings, affect how we see it?
Yeah. Does using words like panic actually help us grasp complex AI behavior, or does it just muddy the waters, making us misunderstand what these systems truly are and what they can, and maybe more importantly, can't do?
It's definitely something to consider as we talk more and more about AI.
Absolutely. And as AI keeps evolving so quickly, throwing up these fascinating, unexpected behaviors, really understanding the nuts and bolts of how they work becomes even more critical. We'll definitely keep tracking these developments and bring you more deep dives into the latest AI news right here. Speaking of which, look out for our regular weekly AI news roundup coming this Monday.
Yeah, lots happening there too.
Sure. Thanks for joining us on the deep dive.